Brazil is wild when it comes to GTA clones. A while back, we looked at 171, the so-called Brazilian GTA that blew up online, and then we dug into Impunes, a completely different take that almost nobody had heard of. Now, both of these games are back in the spotlight, and the progress they've made since we last checked in is honestly surprising. One of them is moving closer to a full release, the other just showed up on Steam with a brand new trailer, and together, they're shaping up to be the most ambitious projects to ever come out of Brazil's indie scene. So let's dive back into the Brazilian GTAs because things are only getting crazier from here. If you've been following along, you probably remember 171 and the whole drama where a lot of players thought it was nothing more than a scam, an asset flip made to cash in on the GTA name, and honestly, it did look sketchy in the beginning, but somehow it didn't die, and the devs kept pushing. The game hit Steam in early access, and it proved there was actually something real behind all the hype, and at this point, 171 isn't just some meme project anymore. It's still indie, still janky in spots, but it's turning into a legit game, and it's a lot closer to a full release than people expected. After that whole rocky start, the devs actually went quiet for a while, which made people worry they'd bailed for good. But then out of nowhere, they came back with some of the biggest updates the game has had so far. And this isn't just patching bugs or tweaking small stuff, because they've been adding entire systems and setting up the roadmap for the final version. They've said there are only 2 more big content updates planned for the early access build, and then it's straight into the so-called gold version, which is basically the full release. That's a huge shift because it means we're not talking about maybe one day this game will be finished anymore. We're talking about an actual release window late this year or early 2025 if everything goes according to plan. And the updates they've dropped recently aren't small at all. We're talking about stuff that makes 171 feel way less like a basic GTA knockoff and more like its own thing. For one, they added a full police system where you can actually play as a cop, and it's not just putting on a uniform for fun, but it comes with its own mechanics like patrolling, frisking NPCs, clearing out crime spots, and even working your way up with perks and gear. On top of that, they've gone heavy into the life sim side of things. Your character now has hunger and thirst to manage. You can hit food stands or vending machines around the city, and whatever you eat actually changes your body. If you overdo it, you get chubby. If you train at the gym, you bulk up. And they even added barber shops and tattoo parlors so you can mess with your look. It doesn't stop there though, because you can buy property, rent it out, and even deal with tenants who don't pay on time. They've been sprinkling in these little systems one by one, and together it's starting to feel like a much bigger, more interactive world than what people expected from a 7-person indie team. And it's not just new features, they're also trying to keep the game up to modern standards on the technical side. The latest builds added support for DLSS 3.7 and FSR 3.0 with frame generation, which is something you don't usually see in small indie projects like this. It means the game can run smoother on mid-range hardware while still looking good, and it shows the devs are paying attention to performance instead of letting the whole thing collapse under bad optimization. They've also been reworking sounds with proper middleware, so vehicles and NPCs don't all feel copy-pasted, and tweaking things like lighting, tree rendering, and collisions that used to look broken in earlier builds. It's not perfect, but the fact they're tackling these low-level systems now means the final version won't just be feature-rich, but hopefully way more polished to actually play. What's keeping me really curious though are the promises for the final version. The devs have been clear that the alpha on Steam is only scratching the surface. The big stuff is being saved for gold, and that means a proper story mode, new areas expanding the map way beyond the current city, and motion capture animations to finally fix how stiff the characters move. They've already teased mountain ranges, rural highways, and even beaches filled with NPCs and wildlife to make the world feel big and alive. And the fact they're holding back those additions instead of rushing them into early access shows they want the final release to actually feel like a leap forward, not just another update. It's ambitious, maybe even too ambitious for such a small team, but if they can pull it off, 171 might end up surprising a lot of people. But of course, it's not all sunshine. The animations are still stiff, and the game has a long way to go before it can even dream of competing with something like GTA. The devs have gone quiet for months at a time before, and every time that happens, people start wondering if the whole thing is about to collapse. Even now, some players think the team might be overpromising, biting off way more than they can chew. And honestly, that doubt isn't unfair. We've seen plenty of indie projects hype up huge features and then stall out, especially when money and manpower run short. 171 is being made by a tiny group that's basically learning on the the job, and that's a risky situation no matter how you frame it. But the flip side is, every time people are ready to write this game off, it comes back with another update that shows they're actually moving forward. It's not perfect, but it's not dead either, and that alone makes it worth paying attention to. So, at this point, 171 has kind of earned its place. It started out looking like a sketchy cash grab, but it's slowly turning into a real game with its own identity. And if the devs really hit that final release window before GTA 6 drops, they could pull off something huge. But 171 isn't the only Brazilian GTA worth talking about. While it's been inching closer to a full release, another project has been quietly building in the background, and now it's stepped into the spotlight with a new trailer and a Steam page of its own. That game is Impunes, and in some ways, it's even crazier. When I first covered this game, most people had never even heard of it. It's another Brazilian GTA, but coming from a totally different background. This one's being led by Junior, and if you've ever modded GTA San Andreas, you probably know the name. He's the guy behind Mixmods, one of the biggest GTA modding sites out there, and someone who's been building mods for over a decade. Back then, Impunes didn't have much to show outside of a few early concepts, and honestly, it felt like one of those projects that might just fade away. But now, things look very different. The game has its own Steam page where you can wishlist it, a brand new trailer showing real gameplay, and a website packed with details about how it's supposed to work. What makes Impunes stand out is that it's not just trying to be GTA, but in Brazil. The devs are going for something a lot more experimental. Instead of a fixed story with one main character, you actually create your own. Male, female, skinny, ripped, whatever you want. And the game is built around how the world reacts to you. The whole system runs on reputation. If you play like a criminal, you rack up what they call impunity points. That opens doors to shady jobs and under-the-table deals, but it also comes with real downsides. NPCs get scared of you, cops crack down harder, and even basic things like paying bail get more expensive. On the flip side, you can go clean, work legit jobs, help people out, and build a positive rep. Shops treat you differently, NPCs respond in new ways, and your game ends up going down a totally different path. And on top of that, Impunes is designed from the ground up to be community-driven. Think of it like a modern version of San Andreas Mod Design Your Own Mission, but built straight into the game. Players will be able to create their own missions, jobs, and side activities with scripting tools, and drop them right into the world. It means the game isn't limited to whatever the devs finish, and it's supposed to grow over time with community content layered on top. The world of the game is also way bigger than you'd expect from a small indie project. The plan is for the map to be about the same size as GTA San Andreas, around 6 by 6 kilometers, which is massive for a game like this. And instead of dropping everything at once, they're building it in phases. The alpha version focuses on the rich beachside area inspired by Balneário Camboriú, with tall buildings and luxury apartments. And later updates expand into poorer neighborhoods, then out into rural regions with farms, highways, and smaller towns. It's not just empty land either. The devs want to simulate a functioning city. That means things like hospitals, police stations, gyms, markets, dealerships, and even churches are all meant to be part of the map. They've even thrown in landmarks like the cable car, the Ferris wheel, and even Neymar's famous penthouse. Gameplay in Impunes is built around giving players different ways to approach the world. There are 3 main modes: Arcade, which plays more like GTA 5 with infinite ammo and cops that don't hold grudges; Simulation, which is closer to Red Dead Redemption 2 with survival elements like limited ammo, the need for gas, and police who actually remember you in your car; and then Custom, where you can set the rules yourself and mix both styles. The survival elements in simulation mode are where it gets really interesting. If you pull out a weapon in public, people will notice. If you get into trouble with the cops, they'll recognize you later, not just magically forget once you leave the area. Even the way you carry yourself changes things like hiding guns, managing your inventory, making sure your character has food or items on hand. And then there's how NPCs are built. Instead of copy-pasted pedestrians, Impunes uses procedural variation so characters look and act differently. That ties back into the reputation system. How you play changes how they respond, and that's the core idea of the game. Like, it's less about following a scripted story and more about watching the city shift based on the choices you make. Another area where Impunes is going all in is vehicles. Pretty much everything you'd expect in a GTA-style game is here. Cars, bikes, buses, trucks, boats, even planes and horses are already planned. And the devs are thinking bigger because they've talked about adding cruise ships, helicopters, and even drones later down the line. The cool part is how much detail they're putting into how vehicles actually look and feel. They don't just take damage, they wear down over time. Paint fades from the sun, scratches and rust build up, bullet holes stay on the body, mud and dirt pile pile onto the tires. It's a system that makes every car feel like it's been through something. Weapons get the same treatment. Instead of being simple tools, they can collect dirt, blood, and scratches, and you'll be able to customize them with paints, engravings, and attachments. And while you can grab a pistol at a normal shop, a lot of the heavier gear is hidden in shady spots, like black market vans parked around the city. Audio is another area where Impunes is taking a different route. Since they don't have the kind of budget to license real songs, the devs are mixing together Creative Commons tracks, submissions from independent artists, and AI-generated music to fill the world. And instead of being stuck with whatever the devs pick, we'll actually be able to drop in your own songs, or tune into online radio stations straight from inside the game, just like we would in something like Euro Truck Simulator. They're also experimenting with voices. Some NPCs will be voiced by actors, some will use AI voices, and community-made missions can mix in whatever, text, recordings, or synthetic voices. The bigger plan down the road is to have dynamic AI voices that can generate dialogue on the fly, so you might hear a news anchor talking about something you just did in the game. It's rough around the edges, but if they can pull this off, the soundscape of Impunes could end up being one of the most unique parts of the game. Not just music on the radio, but a world that literally reacts to you through its voices. The devs have also hinted at multiplayer, though that's very much a long-term dream rather than something guaranteed. At one point they even had a prototype running, but they put it on hold because the project just doesn't have the funding or manpower to handle both single-player and online at the same time. The idea, though, is to eventually support something closer to the old SAMP or MTA days with servers where players can roleplay, script missions, and add their own content. And since the game is being built around Lua scripting from the ground up, that kind of flexibility is already baked into the design. For now, though, the focus is squarely on single player. The team has made it clear they need to get the core game finished and stable first before chasing the multiplayer dream. Now, here's where things get tricky. Impunes is easily one of the most ambitious indie projects out there, but the reality behind it is tough. The game's being made by a very small team with no salaries, working in their spare time, and paying expenses out of pocket. Crowdfunding hasn't gone well for them in the past. One campaign only pulled in about 30% of its goal, so right now, they're relying mostly on community donations and passion to keep the project alive. They're building it in Unity, using a mix of tools like Blender and Substance, and while the systems they're showing are impressive, it's all happening with extremely limited resources. That means progress is slow, and there's always the risk the game gets stuck in development hell if support doesn't grow. The good news is they've become a lot more transparent. The fact that Impunes is now on Steam with a wishlist page, a brand new trailer, and a fully updated website shows they're serious about pushing it forward, even if the road ahead is going to be long and uncertain. When you look at Impunes next to 171, the difference is pretty clear. 171 feels like a safer bet, a small GTA clone that's rough, but you can see where it's heading. Impunes, on the other hand, is aiming for something way bigger, and to me it sounds almost impossible for such a tiny indie team to deliver. But hopefully I'm wrong, and they really can pull it off, because if even part of what they're promising actually makes it into the game, it could turn into something special. At the same time, though, it's hard not to be skeptical. And that's what makes this whole thing interesting, because 171 feels like the grounded project that's actually going to release, while Impunes is the wild card that could either collapse completely or end up being the more innovative of the two.